Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to focus on how to develop a quantitative statement of the problem. Although to be honest, this probably may apply towards qualitative as well. But having said that, let's go ahead and get started. Now we need to start by reviewing some of the ideals we've talked about so far before we get into the details of the quantitative statement of the problem. So as you know, as we've already said before, research begins with a problem. We've talked about that. And then you ask questions, I'm just going to put a Q for short, about the problem. And while all this is happening, there's something else you're doing that's very, very important, and that is you're reading. You're reading about the problem. Now, there's two ways you can go about this. Sometimes students are, teachers or researchers, they have a problem that they already want to learn about. Other times, what happens is you discover a problem you want to work on by reading. Either way is acceptable, and I'm sure there might be other ways of uncovering problems that I'm not aware of, whether it's through observation or daily life or whatever, but those are the two main ways. Either you already have something in mind, or you have something in mind because you read about something someone else did. Those are the two main vehicles. So after you have your questions, you need to figure out, you need to read about it like I just said, and then you also need to figure out or figure out how you're going to answer your questions about your problem. After that, you need to share the answers to the questions you have about your problem. That's it. And then after that, you need to explain or interpret, whatever word you want to use, the answers you have. Explain the answers you have about the questions about the problem. That is how it works. So to summarize this and make it as simple as possible, the heart of your research paper is your problem, P for short, and your questions, Q for short. So your P's and Q's. If you're from America, you kind of get that inside joke. That is what it's all about. If you got a bad problem, you're going to have bad questions. If you have bad questions, you're going to have bad process for answering them, bad answers, and bad explanation of your bad answers. That is how it works. So the P's and Q's, or the P and Q's, is really what it's all about in research. Now, in this video right here, we're going to be focusing specifically on how to explain and to share with your audience your research, your problem statement. And so when you are developing your problem statement, go ahead and go right here. We'll talk about this stuff up in the top in a second. When you are dealing with making your problem statement, you are trying to explain to the reader what the problem is. Now, another term for this first introductory paragraph, if you will, of your paper, your dissertation, thesis, or whatever, is essentially you're trying to provide a justification for your study. This is one term that some schools use. Another term that they often like to use is the background. So I'm going to put BG, background of the study. These are two different terms for how you are going to go about laying out your problem. You can't just tell the reader, this is a problem because I say so. This is a problem because I need to write a research paper. This is a problem because I need to publish. My problem is I need to publish. That's not exactly how it works. You need to justify the significance of your study. Now, I know I'm mixing terms there for those who are a little bit more advanced. You need to provide a reason behind, almost like a historical background about why this is a problem. And the tools you use for this are very, very simple. You use other research. That's the most common way to do it. So you cite other sources. This is why you must read and read a lot when you are trying to build your paper. You need this information you find from these other papers to illustrate that you have a legitimate problem in your own paper. And of course, while you're doing these research papers, you're also going to take advantage of statistics. So stats. Now, statistics does not have to come just from peer review articles. You can pull statistics from, newspapers, from, like Pew Studies, things like that. Agencies that focus on demographic type studies, not so much like research academic publications. You could pull stats, and the stats and numbers that you pull, they are used to illustrate that there's a problem here. And I'm going to show you an example in a second. Now I want us to focus in this upper left-hand corner here, this information right here. Now this is a little detailed and complicated, and it might not be appropriate if you are writing, for example, for an academic journal. Sometimes it gets too long. But what you want to do here is you want to try to illustrate to the reader, and this is one way, not the only way, that this is a problem at, the world level. So this is happening all over the world. It's happening in the region of your study, and it's also happening in your local context. I would encourage a student to illustrate something like this for like a dissertation or a thesis, where you have more time to really lay out your case and prove to the reader that you have a legitimate problem. However, if you're just trying to write for a journal, you might only start at the local level, local context. And I'll show you an example on the next screen of a paper I wrote while I was working in Southeast Asia. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, obviously, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because it would be really boring and you would really, have a hard time paying attention. But I want you to notice something. This is the first paragraph of the paper. This is the second paragraph. And of course, this is the third paragraph. So what I'm doing here in the first paragraph is I'm showing the reader, now this paper is about academic dishonesty, students cheating, copying, plagiarism, etc. I'm showing the reader in the first paragraph how cheating, academic dishonesty is happening all over the world. And so I give statistics from, let me just change the color here for you. I give statistics from Europe. I give statistics from the United States. In other words, I'm showing you that, hey, this is happening all over the place, but I have to admit I focused on the West. This is my international proof. Now, remember, at the time of writing this paper, I was living in Southeast Asia. So this is international from the Southeast Asian perspective. And so after I cover how this is an international problem, again, from the Southeast Asian perspective, I then zoom into Asia. And I give examples here from China about how there's academic dishonesty in China. China. Again, you can read this on your own. And then I bring in South Korea and India and even Iran. I show you how cheating is a common problem at the regional level. Now, again, because I want to make sure I'm clear, remember, I was writing while I was in Southeast Asia. So China is a very close neighbor. That is the same region. If I were in America and I were citing stuff that happened in Mexico, that's regional. But then I also zoom down and I get to the local level. So yes, at the time I was in Thailand. And so right here, I'm laying out how cheating is a problem in Thailand. I give you local relevant examples of cheating in Thailand, over and over again. Here's Thailand again. And so what I've done is I've gone from the entire world down to the regional level, and then bullseye right down into the local context of Thailand, the country I was in at the time of writing this paper. So this is one way that you can lay out and illustrate clearly how academic dishonesty, which is my example here, was a problem in America, it was a problem in China, and it was a problem right in my backyard of Thailand. That is how this can be done. Now, again, I have to be honest from experience, writing a statement of the problem this long is probably going to make a lot of editors cranky. So again, if you are writing, and it all depends on your audience, whatever audience you're writing for, you might start just right here. Just start right here with the local context. You illustrate that there is a problem using other research studies. You illustrate that this is a problem by citing statistics, and this is how you lay out your actual paper when you're trying to build the statement of the problem. It should probably be about one paragraph, not much more than that. And generally, not always, because it depends on your writing style, it depends on who you're writing for, and it depends if you're a student on the style of your teacher. You often make this the first paragraph in your research paper, and you build it from there. Now, I haven't talked about how to pull sources yet and how to find materials. That will come in a later video. But what I've done right here is I've clearly laid out for you that the statement of the problem is really about proving to the audience that you are studying something that is of importance. You are studying something that is truly illustrated as being an issue in the world around you. And you can start at the international level, like the paragraph in the top left. You can then zoom down to the regional level, which is the paragraph in the top right. And then you can move down into the local context, which is that bottom center paragraph. However, depending on who you're writing for, again, you might not cover all these three different levels. You might only focus on the local level. Like I've already said, it depends on the editor, and also it depends on how much space you have for your paper. Theses and dissertations can illustrate much more. If you're writing for a conference paper, they need to be much shorter. You probably would only talk about the local context in your paper as a way to illustrate that this is a problem in the surrounding area. It really, really all depends, and I can't give you firm rules on how to approach this. So you can read these paragraphs if you want, pause the screen and take a look at them. I really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty because I'll start to lose people and they'll get bored, but I want to try to summarize what we talked about and then wrap up this video. So in this video, we started by reviewing the research process. Research begins with the problem. You ask questions. You figure out how you're going to answer the questions. You answer the questions. You explain the meaning of the answers to your questions about your problem. And of course, you have to read about your problem. These guys up here, this is all going to be your introduction. And the reading part over here is going to be your review of literature. We've talked about this. Sharing how you're going to answer your questions. That's your methodology. Down here, the answers is your results. And then lastly, at the bottom, the explanation or the meaning is your discussion conclusion section. These 5 sections are in almost probably every single social science thesis dissertation. Next, we actually talked about the stuff for today. And that is where we talked about, writing the statement of the problem. It's normally a paragraph. It could be more than that, depending on your audience and the expectations of your advisor or whoever you're writing for. And so within that statement of the problem, you need to justify and provide a background to your study. Where did this study come from? Why are you doing this particular study? You don't just tell somebody it's a problem. You show them it's a problem. And I have one way of doing this up in the upper left-hand corner where you talk about your problem from an international level, how it affects the world, how it affects the region, and how it affects your local context. And then right here, I give you an example of a statement of the problem. Yes, it's very long. Maybe it's overdone. However, you can clearly see how I'm going through each level of where this is being a problem at, and I'm slowly zooming in on my target. I start with the whole world. Then I zoom into China, and then I zoom down into Thailand. And so the reader can go on this journey where you're getting more and more specific about where this is a problem at and how you are going to approach it, which is something you talk a little bit more about later. So I want to thank you for taking a few moments to watch and listen to this video. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Take care.